மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. Thank you.
So on the diagram we have this position after white's second move, bishop f4. You might call it the London system. That's also the right name. But it's important to remember that we play it in move number second without knight g to f3. And now let's move a bit further into the details. If black choose to close in his bishop, the bishop on c8, with the move e6 at any point, then I think white gets a very comfortable game, a very nice game, easy to play. And let's just see here the further moves: c5, c3, knight c6, knight b to d2. Here black of course have to make a choice, either to play his bishop on e7 or to play bishop d6. I think bishop d6 is the better move. I think that the move bishop e7 is too passive. But here I give you some tricks. If white plays bishop d3, that's the most normal move in the world, then black actually can answer it with knight h5, getting the bishop pair. And then white has a good solid game, but he does not have an attacking game that he will get if he doesn't play bishop d3. If you keep your bishop on f1 and play knight e5, preventing black from playing knight h5, then I think castle short is a mistake, because now white can develop an attack that is very, very dangerous. And if black at one point contra with queen b6 attacking our pawn on b2, there's no reason to give him anything. Just defend it with your rook. And then we need the queen on the king side. And this position here is really a dangerous position for black. That's a position I think black should prevent. So and you don't need to castle for the moment being. You just develop your attack. It could also be g4 here. But queen h3 putting pressure on h7 makes sense. And then after g4, black is forced to play g6. Then we can continue with knight d to f3. It's just a nice position white has. And after c captures d4, e captures d4, black best move is probably to defend the f7 square. I have seen, you know, a player losing very quickly to knight, because with knight e8, because of knight captures f7, and then we have a checkmate soon to come. But I think, you know, this is just yeah, nearly a joke. Bishop e8, and then we can make this typical pressure on the g5 h4 diagonal with bishop g5, because now we start to use this diagonal. You see, he has to move his rook, and d6 is the only square, and then we put more pressure on this diagonal. So now, after putting up pressure, we just develop our pieces, putting our rooks on the right square, and after h5, h3, there is a lot of pressure in this position, and black is having a very difficult time. We are talking about a clear advantage, maybe a winning position. Clearly bishop e7 is too passive, but play knight e5. Don't allow him, black, to play knight h5, getting our bishop. And we don't want to spend a tempo, you know, we're playing h3 to prevent knight h5, now that we have knight e5 instead. Then we keep the h3 square for our queen. So when we talk about bishop d6 here in this position, then probably the most promising move for white is to move his bishop back to g3. But I just want to mention that bishop captures d6 is also not without poison. I played this in a game in the German league, and I actually won with white. And let me show you what I mean. If now we go back and we see a different opening, we see the Sclav opening, and now you have to think with opposite colors. You have to somehow change your thoughts 180 degrees. I know it's not so simple, but it is possible if you're open-minded. So after e3 and bishop f5, now you start to see that we have exactly the same position, but with opposite colors. If you have difficulties to see this right now, then don't give up. It will come later. Then we play bishop b4, but after bishop d2 we always have to be careful with the move knight captures d5. White is actually threatening to capture on d5 with the knight. Because the bishop on b4 is unprotected. And that's the reason why we play a5 to protect the bishop. And then after a3 we move the bishop back. Then white has slightly weakened his pawn structure on the queen side. You don't like this a3 b2 structure. I don't. And after b3 castle short, then one of the points is that e4 is a blunder. Then white is lost. And he's lost because of this little wonderful move, knight c5. You see, after d captures c5 and d captures e4, we will have in the end the bishop on d2 hanging. And after knight captures e4 and knight captures c5, black is a pawn up and white has no compensation. You know, in chess we talk about three nature laws. It's time, it's space, and it's power. So now white is a power down, or you can say black is a power up, one pawn up. And white did not get anything in compensation. You know, you cannot just lose one power without getting at least time compensation or space compensation. But here white has no more time than black, and he has no more space than black. So he's just a power down, and then there is no compensation. He has a lost game. Very simple. So this is the idea when black plays bishop d6. I tell you the most promising move is probably bishop g3, but bishop captures d6, queen captures d6. We play exactly the same as we just saw, but with opposite colors. And then after bishop d7, a4, we could also castle because, you know, at the moment we could castle. Because in case of knight captures d4, then we can capture on d7 and it's a check. So we don't have to play a4 immediately, but we can. And then after castle short, he play a6, we go back with the bishop, and we have the same story. It's not possible for black to play e5 here, because then he loses after knight c4. And this is how I won a game in the German league with knight c4 maneuver. You know, winning a game that quick is just unbelievable, isn't it? Here, after capture, we are a pawn up with white, have a one endgame. But let's look at the more promising game after after bishop d6, and that's bishop to g3. Of course, if black at one point now capture on g3, then we will open up the g file for our rook on h1, and we will have a great pressure on the h file. In example number 1, you saw the white rook on a1 having a great future, and now it's suddenly changed so that it's the rook on h1 instead of rook a1 as in the introduction. So bishop g3, and then after castle here we can play bishop d3, and after rook e8 black, he wants to play e5, so he's playing with a plan here, e6 to e5. Now I want to mention one thing again that's very important. We prevent e4 to e5, very important. And if now black moves his queen anywhere, let's say to c7 or to, then we play f4, getting an excellent Stonewall setup. You can see the pawn structure reminds of a Stonewall, but with opposite colors. And this is a very dangerous attacking position for black, and that's a position that black should not go into. Queen e7, same story. We play f4 with a Stonewall setup that is very, very dangerous for black. And normally it's considered that it's a mistake to have the king on g8. So if you can have this position here with black but castle long, then probably you can survive. Here it's difficult. So after knight e5, what black should do is to capture on e5. And then after d captures back on e5 and knight d7, then we would love to play f4. But there is a drawback with that move, f4, because black can play c4. And after we move our bishop, then he has queen b6 attacking both, you know, the pawn on e3 and also the pawn on b2. And why should we allow black to play like that? Why should we allow him to get a pawn? That's not how we play. You see, that forces us to play knight f3, but that's also a strong move. And we actually get a good game. We don't have to be careful about black eating the pawn because he can't. After knight captures e5, we don't have to capture on h7, you know, and then play queen h5. Immediately we can win the game instead by playing queen to h5 because black can't block for the bishop and the queen. He's blocking for this bishop to h7 and he's blocking for the queen to e5, but the queen can move to e8 instead with a checkmate. So as you can see here, it's winning for white, and he should not go for the pawn on e5 black with queen c7. He could, instead of queen c7, of course play b6 and then just develop, but then I think white will have the better game by preparing the move e4, and he's better. So all in all, I think that after e3, then the move e6 is too passive. It gives white a very comfortable game, and yeah, there's nothing more to say about that.
மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. Thank you.